Oh, hello, and welcome to my end of the year video. I thought I'd try something a little different, and this is it.
2022 was a year. Between getting horribly sick 2 separate times in the latter quarter of the year, visiting the doctor for the first time in 8 years, working harder than I've ever worked before in my full-time job, and somehow still managing to get stream and content creation for YouTube in, I managed to carve out some time to play a couple of games that I'd not played before. And it's this little pocket of the year that I want to focus on today.
So as I sit here trying not to pass out from the sheer exhaustion of the year, let's take a look back at the top 5 games I played in 2022.
Welcome to the top 5 games Colin played in 2022.
Quick note, all of these games were a ton of fun and I enjoyed them all in their own way. Their ranking is by no means a way of saying that one is superior to the other, it's just how I rank them from my experience. Anyway.
Number 5, Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin.
2022 started off with a sort of bang for me as I jumped headfirst into the chaotic world of Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. To quote myself from my first ever retrospective on the channel, which you should totally watch, wink, 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 I'm by no means good at Soulsborne games. There was just something about Stranger of Paradise. Sure, it's fun to play as the head edgelord Jack, bashing baddies with the Funky Bunch beside you, but it's more than that. It somehow managed to combine the combat style that made Dark Souls so popular with Final Fantasy III's class system to create something fun for the series' 35th anniversary. The game even has a solid batch of DLC, with Trials of the Dragon King and Wanderer of the Rift adding additional classes and more story beats, and the upcoming Different Future set to be the biggest story expansion yet. It's just unfortunate that the game runs like absolute garbage on my PS4 Pro. Also, it doesn't have a crafting system, so that's why it gets the lowest spot on the list.
Number 4, Pokemon Violet.
What? A Pokemon game isn't in the top 2? This is madness! Well, hear me out. I really enjoyed Pokemon Violet, probably more than I've enjoyed a Pokemon game in the last couple years. The freedom to go wherever I wanted, to do whatever I wanted, in whatever order I wanted, and being able to play alongside my wife all the time kept me interested for a majority of the game. It features 3 optional story routes, with the only requirement being that you have to actually complete all 3 to finish the game. Starfall Street and Path of Legends were hands down my favorite parts of the game, with Area Zero coming in at a close second. The Victory Road story was incredibly boring. Pokemon has always been about collecting gym badges and facing down the Elite Four to become the Pokemon League champion, but in Scarlet and Violet, it feels like the least thought out portion of the game. The gyms are fine and all, but they lack the actual challenges that make them feel like an established organization. Take, for example, the first gym leaders in Black and White. There are 3 of them, and they teach new players about type advantage, with the player facing off against whichever one has type advantage on your starter. Their gym challenge is also about figuring out elemental symbols on the floor of the cafe and which one has the advantage over the symbol on the curtains. In comparison, the first gym leader in Scarlet and Violet is Katie, a baker. She uses bug-type Pokemon, and her gym challenge is about rolling a giant olive into a basket, which doesn't really make sense. A baker using bug-type Pokemon has a challenge that involves plants. It's the little things like this that really keep the game from being great. Like the gym challenge, the worst Elite Four in the history of Pokemon, or the literal worst champion ever. Gripes aside though, there were a lot of things I did like. The designs for the new Pokemon were fantastic. The fact that you can craft as many TMs as you want is honestly incredible. And having a move relearner anytime you want for free saved me a ton of headache. And before anyone says anything, yes, I know the game can be buggy as hell. Put your snarky comments back in your pocket. I never had anything majorly glitchy happen. The game did crash on me once or twice, and definitely ran like shit in certain areas. But I mean, it's the Switch. I think we've all come to accept that at this point.
Number 3, Beyond the Beyond. Seriously? A PS1 game.
Beyond the Beyond. What can I say about this game that hasn't already been said by a million other people before me? It has the distinction of being the first RPG available for the PS1 in the West that used traditional JRPG gameplay styles, such as what Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest did before it. I started the game on stream before moving to playing off stream, because I felt like I was never able to get anywhere in the 2-hour window that I allotted for being live, and it also somehow made me saltier than any game I'd played to date. It could be that the game only lets you save in towns with churches, which are separated by almost an hour of travel between towns, both directions. Or maybe it's that the rate of random encounters means that I would sometimes take a step, fight a horde of monsters, take another step, and encounter a horde that's the same size or hell, even bigger than the last one. Inventory is also extremely limited, so you either stock up on healing potions, MP restoring items, or dungeon escape items. Never enough of one or the other. There's a lot to like about the game though. The active playing system made turn-based combat feel reactive instead of passive. Think Mario RPG combat and how if you pressed a button at the right time, you would either do more damage or take less damage from enemies. The story's also really good. I liked it a lot. Sure, the story goes deeper than what I gave right now, but you know, I'm saving that for a future video. Oh, and the music was composed by the incredible Motoi Sakuraba, who did the soundtrack for, you know, my favorite game of all time.
Number 2, Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch.
Hey, it's Ni no Kuni again! I actually did a whole video on this game already, but my feelings on it still hold true months later. I love the story, I loved the art direction, I loved the characters, the familiar system, combat, music, and I absolutely adored the crafting system. You put a crafting system in your game that's good, you'll get me hooked. Oh, don't you worry, Dragon Quest XI. I'll get to you soon enough. One thing I'd like to add that I don't think I mentioned in the other video, though, is side quests. They can feel like a chore in a lot of other games, but Wrath of the White Witch never has you going too far out of your way to do a mission. And even if it does, you always have a quick way to return to the guild and turn it in. The game also performs incredibly smooth in detail-rich environments, which is impressive because, you know, the Switch. My only issue was the random crashes that would cause me to lose a few hours of progress, but that maybe only happened twice in a 55-hour playthrough. So not too bad.
Number 1, Monster Sanctuary.
Would you look at that? An indie game took my number 1 spot, and a monster collecting game to boot. Move over, Pokemon, there's a new favorite monster collecting game in my life. I was turned on to this game by my friends Ben and Perpokanoob, and I was hesitant at first. But after the first hour of wandering around Sanctuary, I was hooked. I have 2 copies of the game now, one on the PC and, of course, one on the Switch. So where do I start with a game like this? How about how the game feels incredibly challenging from the get-go, and keeps that challenge going the entire time, even when you've raised a team of monsters that are over-leveled and that you like. Every monster is viable. Even the base slimes from the beginning of the game are viable at the end of the game, and that's freaking cool. Some monsters can metamorphose, while every monster can shift between a light or dark form after a certain point, with all 3 forms, the light, the dark, and the base form, having different strategies and builds to choose from. Monsters learn new skills and passive abilities through their skill trees, with each monster having at least 3 to 4 skill trees to choose from, with some even having a total of 5 trees. You can literally play the game however you want. Want to make your Spectral Frog be a magic attacker? You got it. Want them to be a healing, buffing support instead? Can do, no problem. Want them to only use physical attacks? Why? You can even find and buy equipment for your monsters to use, boosting their stats even further. That equipment can be upgraded to further increase those stats. There's the base game, of course, with no mods or enhancements, and then there's the option to turn on advanced game modes right from the get-go. If there was one bad thing that I could say about the game, it's that, yes, the Switch version seems to have noticeable slowdown after about 2 hours of playing, but I've been able to fix it by saving, which you can do anywhere, and resetting the game. It takes like 2 minutes tops. I've loved all the games that I was able to play this year, even if they didn't make the top 5 list. I've got a couple honorable mentions to throw out there as well: Xenoblade Chronicles, Space Engineers, and Chained Echoes.
So what were some of your favorite games that you played this year? It doesn't have to be a new game or an old game if it's a game you experienced for the first time, or maybe one of your favorites. Leave them in the comments below so we can all reflect together, and maybe, you know, someone will find something that'll become their new favorite for 2023. And on that note, I am going to sit here, relax, curl up, and try to de-stress before 2023 starts. What?
It's already 2023. Happy New Year!
This has been the top 5 games Colin played in 2022. Please consider subscribing to the channel and like, he's passed out. Follow It's Me VT on Twitter and Twitch.